It helps protect some of the things that matter most to us. It helps cover our home, our property, our memories. But extreme weather events are getting more intense and seemingly more frequent, be it because of climate change or our human population expanding into these high-risk zones. Events like hurricanes and wildfires monetarily are becoming more costly. So what are states to do when they get hit with disasters again and again and again? Well, insurance companies, they're just leaving. I'm ABC News meteorologist Rob Marciano, and over the next 30 minutes, we'll focus on 4 states: Florida, Louisiana, California, and Colorado. We'll analyze why these companies are leaving, who is most affected, and how we can all better protect our home from nature's fury. We start here in the Florida Keys, ravaged by Hurricane Irma now over 6 years ago, and where the residents that chose to stay are experiencing a very painful and long journey to rebuild. This is disaster uninsured.
See that sea lavender out there? That's where the house used to be. It came back this way. You would walk in the front door right where I am standing right now.
The house went straight parallel to the ocean. It was a single-level rancher. And
this
then
was the fireplace was right here.
Here's a piece of our house.
Yeah, there you go.
There's our floor.
Still haunts us.
And there's some foundation. If you don't laugh, you're not going to get out of bed in the morning. It's just so sad.
Wouldn't that make you want to rebuild in the same spot?
It did. If we would have got paid by insurance the right amount of money, it would have been you would have been standing in a new house.
Yeah.
And that never happened.
No.
So, you know, that insurance, that was worse than the storm.
Hurricane Irma devouring Florida tonight. The storm making its first U.S. landfall at Cudjoe Key in the lower Florida Keys at 9:10 a.m. Feels like you're being blasted with the fire hose.
I didn't expect a concrete house to just disappear like it did.
When I try to explain to people, I'm like, imagine an arcade game where somebody takes a claw and just goes like this, chomp, and just pulls it out, and it's just gone.
In September 2017, Hurricane Irma barreled across the Atlantic with winds reaching 185 miles per hour. The strongest hurricane ever recorded in the Atlantic Ocean. Deadly and destructive Irma making landfall as a Cat 4 in the Florida Keys. Jen and Harry's dream home destroyed, a twisted pile of rubble taking its place. Up the block, the same for their bed and breakfast. But in the wake of Irma's wrath, another kind of storm was brewing. An insurance market on the fringe of failure. When you saw what was left of your home, did you think, well, okay, we've got insurance, let's rebuild?
That's the first thing that came to my mind is we bought the insurance. It wasn't cheap. I figured we're going to be in pretty good shape. I wasn't even thinking about insurance really till like the day after because it was more shock. Then, of course, I brought my little safe with me in the truck.
To look at your insurance policy.
To look at insurance policies. And I'm like, well, we have 100 and something here. And we have another 250 for the wind. Maybe, you know, we're going to be okay.
Since moving into their Big Pine Key home in 2015, Harry and Jen paid into premium homeowner insurance policies. FEMA flood, wind, and private insurance. So when disaster struck, they had little doubt they would be covered.
A week afterwards, the guy came up from Texas, the underwriter for the flood insurance for FEMA, and he looked at the house, and for him to write a check on the spot for the entire policy,
And how much was that?
$110,000,
So FEMA paid out when they saw nothing was there.
which was amazing. And at that point, I really felt better because
We
I
were
know
feeling okay.
there's nothing there that can be rebuilt.
But your private insurance,
The wind insurance, yeah, private wind insurance.
what did they say? Why wouldn't they pay?
Well, it took probably a month or two before we got any calls back, and they sent, I guess, an appraiser out. Well, most of this damage is done by flood. And then, of course, the flood guy, most of this damage is done by flood and wind. This is the game. Here we are. The game is afoot, I said to myself.
Pointing fingers.
But playing the game meant being forced to file multiple lawsuits.
We were entitled to this money. This was a contractual obligation that they did not live up to, and it should have been paid.
Insurance isn't mandatory by law, but banks often require homeowners to get insurance as a condition of getting a mortgage.
The insurer's goal is to collect more in premiums than they pay out in claims. We're seeing higher costs of materials, higher costs of labor, and those are growing faster than inflation.
In recent decades, the intensity of some hurricanes has exploded, fueled by the warming seas.
We're having more disasters, we're having more costly disasters, and importantly, more people live in harm's way. So any individual disaster now leads to more payouts coming from the insurers. And they're recognizing that these costs are rising quickly, not just because of inflation, and they're reacting accordingly.
According to NOAA, 2023 marked the most billion-dollar disasters on record for the United States, with 24 climate disasters. These events getting more and more costly, prompting some of the largest private insurance carriers to leave the state of Florida entirely.
There's very little that the states can do when an insurer decides to pick up stakes and leave.
3/4 of Florida's 21.5 million residents live in coastal counties, and it was Hurricane Andrew in 1992 that first exposed the vulnerabilities of the private insurance market, which led to the creation of a last resort state-run program called Citizens Property Insurance Corporation. The state-mandated company insures those homeowners who can't otherwise find private insurance.
We've seen a number of large insurers go belly up. And in response, we've seen a lot of homeowners who are now dependent on the state's public insurance plan. So Citizens Property Insurance is now the largest homeowners insurer in the state. And what that points to is a private insurance market that's simply not working.
Florida has the highest average insurance premium in the country, and it's not just Florida at an increased risk.
This is where we slept, and this is what we slept on.
On a piece of plywood.
This was our room.
Your husband's a big man just to get through his doors.
Exactly.
You made it through as a family at least?
Some days I didn't know how we was gonna make it, but we made it.
For 2 years, this was home for Tammy, Charles, and Kaylee Guillory.
It was hard.
The tight quarters of a recreational RV parked in their driveway during the height of the pandemic.
That's the sofa bed. You see how short it is, so you can't be tall
That's where I slept.
and lay on
You
there.
slept there?
She slept
Yeah,
there.
because I left and then I came back because where I was living at got damaged from the flood in May. So when I came back home, this was my new home.
So you're sleeping on a table basically.
Yeah.
It was a 1-2 punch for the family. First, Hurricane Laura made landfall in Louisiana as a Category 4 hurricane, bringing with it catastrophic storm surge and 150-mile-per-hour wind. Just 6 weeks later, Hurricane Delta hit. Tammy and Charles were affected by both. First wind, then flooding, and turned to their insurance companies to pay their policies.
We did what we were supposed to do on our end of the bargain. Now it's time for them to do what they're supposed to do.
But they had to take their unmet claim to trial.
I cried so many times in getting letters or hearing from the law office.
So this is the total amount that we have to pay?
Yeah.
They won, but the insurer appealed the case, which led to more waiting.
This was for the mitigation.
You won your case over a year ago.
Yes.
It's been like a year and a half.
Do you feel like the
insurance companies just aren't playing by the rules you guys all set up to play by?
I really truly believe that, and it's not just for us, it's for so many thousands of people from this area that's going through and went through the same thing that we've went through. I was a client of this company for over 20 years with no missed payments. But when it's time for us to be able to receive, we have to go through this. And I don't think it's right.
I've been all around every street.
Attorney Michael Cox represented the Guillerys, along with hundreds of similar cases in the area.
When you have this massive catastrophe, I think the insurance companies came in, they know statistically that most people will just walk away with the mistreatment. And they did. Most people won't fight like Charles and Tammy fought. They stood up for themselves and they were willing to go all the way to the mat with this company. I got good news for you.
Yeah?
Court of Appeals ruled today.
Well, what we got?
You win.
Come on, man. We did it.
Some great news.
Y'all fought the good fight and won.
After a long, bitter battle, while the Guillerys had a happy ending, Louisiana still has the third highest insurance premiums in the entire country. The insurance market here has been deteriorating since the state was hit by record hurricane activity 3 years ago, which caused upwards of $23 billion in damage in Louisiana, leaving many carriers to back out of the state. 12 insurers declared insolvent because of losses from that period. Another 12 voluntarily withdrew. And in just the last 2 years, the Louisiana state plan, called Louisiana Citizens Property Insurance Corp., more than tripled from 35,000 to 128,000 policyholders.
The drama in Louisiana was that the state insurance regulator increased premiums by 65% earlier this year for the state-run plan. And that was a recognition that they simply didn't have enough capital on hand to weather an even moderate storm. And so there was a big outcry.
The state government approved a $45 million fund in February of this year to help stabilize the market. Insurance Commissioner Jim Donelon says it's a first step to court companies to come back to the state.
That's a balance between the obligation we have to make insurance available, attract companies, and the obligation we have to make them responsive and fair with their policyholders.
A major kink in the chain is often one thing: reinsurance.
Reinsurance is most easily thought of as insurance for insurance companies. So insurance companies are going to take on risky policies from homeowners all over the country, and they're going to have a portfolio of risk, and they'd like to protect themselves from the worst case scenarios.
With many high-risk areas of the U.S. seeing more costly natural disasters, the price for them to stay is increasing too.
They have a lot of influence in the decisions that insurers make. They have invested heavily in climate modeling, and they have some of the best data and the best models out there. And because this is the only business that they do, they have a lot of money at stake.
One solution: fortifying homes to withstand these storms and reduce the need for insurance payouts to rebuild.
Okay, what you currently see here are equivalent to Category 5 hurricane force winds.
Here at the University of Miami, researchers are testing how to fortify against these storms, showing us that the way we build could be the one key to reversing the insurance market.
Forces, the first round of Hamas hostages have been transferred to the